Let's take a look at what you're doing in this first week of the course. We're in Module 1, and we're looking at an introduction to captive husbandry and a primer on genetics. One of the first things you'll do here is to do an introduction, and this is just a discussion posting, introducing yourselves to others in the class. To do your posting, you'll just click on this, and then you'll hit reply so that you can make your posting. The next link here are the learning materials. There's a short video here from the course developer, and then you have some various readings. You will be reading the first 2 sections in this Ballou et al. You'll read this introduction section here, and then 3, the value of population management. In addition to that reading, we also have some journal articles. You'll see 3 different journal articles here for you to read. They give you a good background as to some of the issues in managing populations for conservation and maintaining genetic diversity that we're interested in throughout the course. In case you need some information about genetic terminology, that is here as well. If you are reading any of this and some of the terms or concepts that they are describing in there are not clear to you, please let me know. So send me an email and I will explain those to you. After the learning material, you have your first regular weekly discussion aside from the introduction. Based on that reading that you've done, it's going to ask you to perform a primary literature search looking for a genetic technique that we can use to maintain genetic diversity of a captive population. If we look at a big group of organisms, there's a lot of diversity into the genetic makeup that they have. And what we want to do is to make sure that when we manage populations, we preserve that genetic diversity. We don't want to lose the genetic diversity because that will then limit that population's future success. They won't be able to adapt to changing conditions if they don't have that genetic diversity. It's asking you to find a peer-reviewed scientific article. It is a journal article that was written by a scientist and was then also reviewed by other scientists. So you want something that is in a journal. You don't want something that is just a website. You want to make sure it was from a journal. To find these journals, you could either use Unity's online library or Google Scholar. You're going to pick one of the techniques that one can use to help maintain genetic diversity. And they list a couple of those techniques here. And these would be ways that we could test for genetic diversity to make sure that we are maintaining that genetic diversity. And what I would do with the search is I might put in the name of the technique I'm interested in, but then also put in something about using it as a genetic tool for conservation or to maintain genetic diversity so that you're not getting a whole bunch of articles that just talk about RFPL but not geared towards this particular aspect of it. The more specific you can do your search, the easier it's going to be for you to find something that's appropriate and something that will apply here. It wants you to write a short review of the paper that looks at the genetic tool that you've identified. You're going to name the technique. You're going to describe the details of it, how the procedure was done and how the data were analyzed, what were some of the conclusions of that study, and then how that technique could be applied to a captive population. What you're going to want here is a research article, because if you don't pick a research article, you're not going to have data. A review article will typically not have a study that's done. It will just review a bunch of other studies, and that would be very hard for you to try to summarize in such a short frame here. Pick a research article using one of these techniques. You also want to cite it in APA format. You'll post that by Thursday at 3 a.m. Then by Monday at 3 a.m., you will find posts from 2 of your classmates that use techniques different from the one that you used. Include how the techniques differ from what your technique was, how the applications are either similar or different. So you're basically comparing what they came up with what you came up with. So that's your discussion for week 1. Then your first assignment in week 1 is looking at making decisions for captive populations. And one of the things you'll notice with these assignments is they are going to give you information that's going to move into your course project. Your course project at the end of week 5 isn't something you just start from scratch on week 5. You're doing it throughout the course. You're doing part of it here in week 1. It's having you look at this concept of structured decision making and consider a scenario where a mining company has just given you 10,000 acres of a reclaimed strip mine, and your job is to decide what strategic direction you're going to take for this new zoo. What are you going to do with it? It's also asking you to pick a species. It can be from this, but it also can be a species of your own choosing. Pick one of these different strategic directions and then write a persuasive report as to why this particular strategic direction is preferable, and then to defend that argument with some resources that you find. So again, you want to look for some peer-reviewed articles that would support the use of this particular strategic direction for this particular species. You can see down below the assignment where we have the grading rubric. Remember, if you want to look at the grading rubric on the discussion, you click these three dots and then show rubric. And then you also this week will have a simulation in Labster. What you're going to do here is it's going to teach you a little bit about animal genetics and how we can test for certain things. We're looking at a particular trait in cattle, this trait called double muscling, where the cattle develop very large muscles. You can't call cattle organic if they have that gene. What they're trying to do is to first have us identify where the gene is and then be able to come up with a test where we could go to a farm and we could take blood tests, or we could test meat in a store and see whether it has that particular gene. You'll essentially just go in and hit play. It's going to launch Labster for you. Now you can see other information down here, but everything you need is going to be right when you go in and you hit play, and it'll run you through that simulation. Once Labster loads, you'll hit start and it'll go through the simulation with you. It will periodically stop and ask you questions. The score that you earn in Labster and your finishing of it will go over into the Canvas gradebook. As long as you make sure you do it in Labster, you're done there because it will transfer over to Canvas. But make sure that you go through all of the different parts of the simulation, answer all of those questions as you go through. If you have any questions as you're running through Labster, please let me know. I can either answer those in an email or we can try to meet virtually to walk through some of that together. If you have any questions through the week, please let me know.